I believe it must have been James Wazoo Angleton, who upon hearing the news said, "I'm not privy to who struck John." That doesn't mean he wasn't. Everyone in Pittsburgh recalls the day. There was something about it as though we were fighting what Bupenagel would call the ancient enemy. The weather, everyone in Pittsburgh remembers, took a very strange turn. The wind was like a wall. I struggled to walk against it. It was as though God had been made angry. But of course, we know that the real showdown was with those who believed the bullet was over the ballot. It was simple for them. All they had to do was pull it off. The regulars who supported Kennedy went to work making it next to impossible to look at the evidence squarely. They denied that Oswald's Army ID was dated for the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. They denied that Oswald could possibly be a name signifier of Oswald Mosley, when all the evidence corroborated that that's precisely what was going on. The Elizabethan theater element had a girl, Rosemary Willis, in a Shinto shrine outfit at the scene of the crime. A Japanese diplomat is seen standing under the nuclear bunker sign as Oswald's body comes out of the Texas Police Department. As part of the lesson of the Texas school book, which has been traced to Neva Pornographic Corporation, which is Japanese. This diplomat was with Jack Ruby downstairs through much of the day when he wasn't with Henry Wade, the sheriff of Roe versus Wade, who framed Mr. Oswald. We know, of course, that it was man playing God that had struck John. It traces back to a fourth dimensional Superman idea of the days when Duke Edward wanted control of Hollywood and was ally of fascist Italy in World War I. Before fascism came into vogue, the British were a cheering section for the Italian power system. Mussolini got his start with D.W. Griffith with the help of mutually of Gabriel D'Annunzio, a World War I aviator and a poet. Come now, what do we actually know, despite the media system that produced a reporter who told us what we would rather believe? Dan Rather said, proof of name index. I saw Kennedy's head go violently forward. Oz was being walled by the exact opposite of the truth. But come, what do? You follow the chain of evidence. The chain of evidence leads to the garage of Michael Payne, who had possession of the rifle. And his cousin sat on the United Fruit Corporation board of directors with Allen Dulles, who appointed Cecil B. DeMille, charge of Radio Free Europe after World War II, and met with Adolf Hitler in 1933 to forgive his campaign debts for the Schroeder Bank. Allen Dulles was not the only friend of Adolf Hitler who sat on the Warren Commission. John McCloy sat on the Warren Commission and in Adolf Hitler's personal booth at the Munich Olympics. where Hitler raised the swastika over the world's flags. There are many particulars that show that Axis intelligence was behind who struck John. And what is more to the point, media evaluators surely by now know that Reagan is heavily implicated by his film The Killers and the pathway of Axis intelligence in Hollywood, not least of all which leads to the exploitation of my person by the assassins in the name of a cult of unrivaled gall, Sound Mental Health Seattle Art Museum Syndicate, torturing me, poisoning me, horrifically abusing both my body and my name to advocate and build momentum for the genociders behind the attack in the name of John Lennon to make a little money on confiscated obscure paintings. These are sick times. Nothing could make that clearer. Kennedy reasserted himself over my subconscious twice. Once when I did a Rorschach block that I gave to Urban with my application. It seemed to come from somewhere mysterious in the fabric of existence. Another time as I fell asleep on a bus, who knows where, probably on my way to Philadelphia, early in the morning. And I came waking up with this sudden awareness of the incident in Dealey Plaza. It was all unlooked for and unexpected. But I don't want to mystify what happened because it gives too much leverage to those behind the fourth dimensional Superman in the Texas school book script that says God must be watching over me. But Rubenagel was not dealing with God watching over him. He was dealing with a specter of the ancient enemy. And that's not what's at work. What's at work is lewd, sniveling idiocity. They can't answer the first question. What is the pen person behind the Texas school book doing playing a violin in Seattle Center in the mural there? Well, I tell you, she's not really mysterious about what she's doing by playing the violin, because the Texas school book was a revenge attack called Pussy Ball from Yoko Ono Midori Goto that advanced Barack Obama as the honorary black man of the script through Jeffin Corporation and Nosferatu's team. But why is she being supported by Seattle City Council? That is very mysterious. They are criminally insane. They can't stop themselves from ravaging the carpet over a one-night stand that happened 40 or 50 years ago. It was completely innocuous. And the decision was made by the woman in question to take me home. They're criminally insane, and you dare not even try to bother to reason with them. They are covering for these mad assassins. God knows why. Now, the script switches to me from JFK, which makes me a hapless of some circumstance. And of course, they've never bothered to hide the fact that they were what they called impinging on a persona. In other words, just taking a bystander and making up stories about him, the way Blas Stenders made up stories about himself. For cinematic and political purposes, it's all very garbled up with symbols of America, who my father was. If you want to know how badly Roger Waters and Ringo Starr hate American public schools, look at the hatchet job they made of my father's legacy with the help of these so-called high-minded British gentlemen, Robert Fripp and Peter Gabriel. And I'm supposed to be the lucky one, she says in Diva, which has all sorts of sneering innuendos about what they were impinging on the persona. When it turns to me, it may seem superficially to be primarily about the Pussy Bowl operation, but that's not the limit of how they used me. They kidnapped me in a Manson ordeal. These people from Manson Cinema, like Neva Manson, which is the name of the Japanese pornographic company that uses a C and a Star of David for its copyright symbol. 1 penny and you died. Just go ask Shannon Harps at Seattle City Council. You can't, of course, because they covered for the reason she was murdered in a horrific knife attack outside the clubhouse where they forced me to stare into space for 12 years, banning me from college, ignoring my intelligence and research and evidence in favor of promoting of what they called in cold blood a persona that they impinged on my experiences and name. The pitmen were behind the neurotoxins and inhalants that they forced on me, along with a man named Casper, and another man named Mancine, and another man named Donald. Ronnie Zisinski had a Nazi bayonet that he set up an attempt to stab me with. And he stomped on my head with the Pitmans and Puma. I was rescued by the generosity of 2 bystanders. Pitman is like Hitman, Pitbull, and Quarryman, and they lived up to that name in Pittsburgh because they were ruffians who Ringo Starr came to bat for. He actually forced me to pay for the gas that they gassed me with, and the King family did not protest the way they tortured me again. They sat me down in a puddle and made me sing to them, and Ringo Starr threatened to murder the people in my family if I didn't illustrate it by doing it again. In the hottest summer weather, I'm dressed in boots and leather and Levi's tightly shrunk, and I feel brave and reckless when I wear my Nazi necklace because I'm nothing but a punk. Tears streaming down my face on both occasions. Pittman and Starr worked together, not as opportunists, but as plotters from the criminally deranged. Wadmaker was an Attica State Prison psychiatrist. You know Seattle. They have Attica State relays to Jericho, taking hostages like poor Mackenzie Shirilla. All of the evidence speaks to an index system meant to describe the survivor group. They're building an arc of colors, and Russia was in on it. I believe we have something to learn from Russian intelligence when it comes to embracing the multipolar world. But we must clearly identify the fundamentalist tripartite behind Iran-Contra, Foucault's death, and the attack that led Foucault to be mortally wounded in a suicide bomb. From fundamentalist royalism that the supernova massacre symbolized, Nosferatu and CEC were both in on this game. I don't dare challenge them politically. I'm a journalist.